Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Tel Aviv. Coming up in today's newscast, another terror attack takes place in central Israel. Israelis mourn the death of terror victim Hadar Cohen, and more new immigrants are headed to the Holy Land. I'm Natasha Kirchuk here with the latest news in Israel. An Israeli security guard was stabbed by two Arab teenagers in central Israel today. Police say the attack was motivated by nationalistic reasons. The 27-year-old guard was lightly wounded just outside the central bus station in Ramleh. According to initial reports, two teenage girls approached him at the entrance to the building he was guarding. When he asked for their identification cards, the teens responded by pulling kitchen knives out of their pockets and stabbing him in his leg and hand.
במוקד מד"א איילון התקבלה קריאה לאירוע דקירה בתחנה מרכזית ברמלה. למקום הוזמנו כוחות, ניידות טיפול נמרץ ואמבולנסים. במקום שהיה עובד מד"א במקרה באירוע פרטי שלו שראה את האירוע, התחיל לטפל ראשון. צוותים שהגיעו לכאן טיפלו בבחור בן 27 עם פגיעות בגפיים ועוד שתי נפגעות חרדה. כל הפצועים קל מאוד, פונו לבית חולים אסף הרופא.
A soldier and an armed civilian quickly arrested the girls before they could do serious damage, and then took them to a police station for questioning. Police claim the attackers are around 13 years old, and one of them was carrying a school bag. A significant number of terror attacks have been carried out by minors during the latest wave of violence in Israel. Last month, another 13-year-old girl attempted to stab an Israeli guard in the West Bank and was shot dead by police at the scene. Meanwhile, Israelis are mourning the death of border policewoman Hadar Cohen, who was murdered yesterday during a terror attack in Jerusalem. The 19-year-old was laid to rest this afternoon at a military cemetery in Yehud. The 19-year-old corporal was shot in the head by three terrorists yesterday at the Damascus Gate in Jerusalem's Old City. A second policewoman was seriously wounded in the attack and remains in the hospital. Police forces at the scene managed to shoot and kill the three assailants who attacked the women with automatic weapons and knives. The assailants were also armed with pipe bombs, and police officials say that they were apparently planning a larger attack on Israeli civilians. The Jerusalem mayor has lauded the police for their heroism, which prevented a larger tragedy.
What we need is high alert, well-spread security forces, a will to engage. It was swiftly over, and we're moving on with our lives. The message I have to the residents of the city of Jerusalem and the people of Israel: we move on. We will continue our life with our plans, and thank the police and the security forces that did a respectable, good, professional job today.
The terror group Hamas has been quick to praise the attack, but hasn't taken credit for the incident. Meanwhile, Israel has been quick to blast biased international media coverage of the event. The American news outlet CBS reported the story with the headline, "3 Palestinians Killed as Daily Violence Grinds On." After the Israeli Foreign Ministry denounced the story title, CBS changed it, this time to "Israeli police kill 3 alleged Palestinian attackers." The 3 terrorists have been identified as West Bank residents who entered Israel illegally to carry out the attack. Police still haven't commented on how the attackers managed to enter Israel. It looks like the second policewoman wounded in yesterday's terror attack is recovering successfully. Corporal Ravit received some important visitors in her hospital room, including Prime Minister Netanyahu. And during the visit, he commended her for her bravery during the attack.
אתם מנעתם אסון גדול מאוד. ואלמלא הפעולה שלכם דורש המון תעצומות נפש והמון גבורה. בזמן אמיתי, גבורה ותושייה, אתם מנעתם אסון גדול מאוד. וזה לא מפחית את הכאב קודם כל של האובדן של אדם, וגם את הספיגה של המכה שאת שאת ספגת. אני מקווה שאת מרגישה יותר טוב, אני מקווה גם שתחלימי מהר, כי עם ישראל כולו מייחל שתחלימי.
Netanyahu has already ordered a crackdown on the West Bank village Kabatia, which is a hometown of the 3 terrorists who carried out the attack. The army has imposed a semi-closure on the town, allowing humanitarian goods into the village but placing restrictions on the movement of residents.
קבטיה מקוטרת, צה"ל מבצע שם יחד עם השב"כ מעצרים נרחבים, שללנו הרבה מאוד היתרי עבודה בישראל, והיועץ המשפטי לממשלה הודיע לי אתמול שהוא הוסיף תריסר בתים של מחבלים להריסה ולהתאימה. זה רק חלק מהמאמצים שלנו על מנת להילחם בטרור הזה. אנחנו נוכלנו, זה ייקח זמן, זה מאבק ממושך. הטרור האסלאמי שוטף את כל העולם ומסית מיליונים במדינות רבות, מג'קרטה ועד אפריקה, בואכה קליפורניה. אנחנו בתוך הקלחת הזאת, הוא לא פוסח עלינו, אבל אנחנו נלחמים בו בעוצמה רבה ונמשיך לעשות זאת.
Two Israeli minors have been sentenced for the kidnapping and murder of a Palestinian teenager in 2014.
Mohammed Abu Qadir was allegedly kidnapped by 3 Israeli teens in the summer of 2014 and then burned to death in a Jerusalem forest. He was abducted just 2 days after 3 Israeli teens were kidnapped and killed by their Palestinian kidnappers in the West Bank. Both incidents of violence were a major contributing factor to the outbreak of Israel's war with Hamas that year. The identities of the convicted teens responsible for Abu Qadir's death still haven't been revealed because of their status as minors, but the Jerusalem District Court has just released their sentences. The first of the convicts is 17 years old, and he was sentenced to life for pouring gasoline on Qadir before lighting him on fire. The second convict is 16 years old and has been handed a 21-year sentence for helping kill the Palestinian teen. Finally, the third suspect in the murder is 31-year-old Yosef Chaim Ben David, and he hasn't yet been sentenced because he's pleading insanity. Abu Qadir's family is demanding a heavier sentence for the teenage murderers, asking the Israeli government to demolish their homes.
Imagine having the power to predict global events, from political riots to disease epidemics. That sounds impossible, right? Well, Israeli prodigy Dr. Kira Radinsky has become an international star for her ability to predict the future through award-winning software. Power woman just might be an understatement when it comes to Dr. Radinsky. She started university at 15 years old and earned her PhD at 26. Plus, she just made it onto Forbes 30 Under 30 Rising Stars list in 2015. Now, Dr. Radinsky's obsession with predicting the future has led her to start a new company. But we'll let her tell you more about that herself. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for inviting.
So you have done so much at a young age. It's astonishing. How did this happen? I mean, where do you get this motivation and inspiration from?
Well, I never think about it that way, but my dreams in childhood would have always been to be a scientist. I was always interested about how things work and how can I make things happen in a much more motivational way, in a more positive way. I came to Israel when I was 4 from USSR, part of the biggest immigration in Israel for quite a while then. We came with nothing, and my mom was trying to plan to come to Israel just after the war is going to end. Everybody knew the Gulf War is going to start. So of course we came only 2 weeks before it started. So even studying then, I understood the need for ability to predict.
So you have a doctorate in data mining. Can you tell us what that means in easy terms?
So data mining means taking all the data that we have as humanity and making sense out of it, using a lot of statistics and machine learning and building automated software to make sense, structure it, and make some kind of output out of it. Maybe it's predictions, maybe it's more explanations about what we already know.
So speaking of those predictions, I understand that you actually predicted Cuba's outbreak of cholera several months before it actually happened. Can you tell us about that? How did you do that?
So the software I've built is about taking what we know as humanity and the knowledge that we obtain in the form of news, coming since 1851 till today. Afterwards, we started adding encyclopedias, we added Twitter feeds, adding searches of people, and looking for events that repeat themselves. We built a system that reads all this like a human would do, using deep natural language processing algorithms, and looking for repetitions. One of the interesting repetitions that we saw is about, well, one of them is not that surprising, is that cholera happens a lot after storms. Now that's surprising because it's a waterborne disease. But what we found out is a high correlation in certain locations. If there is a drought 2 years before that, the probability becomes much higher. And the reason for that, we were really interested about why it happens in certain places but not in others. And what the system inferred is the fact that it It only happens in countries with low GDP, not that surprising.
Right.
And the other one was more about the fact that they don't have enough clean water. And the interesting thing is that if you have enough clean water, you can stop epidemics, especially cholera. You can drop mortality rates from 50% to less than 1%. So this was part of our understanding that cholera is caused by weather. We started getting more information from airport sensors to try to predict in a much better way, and not only 2 years in before, but trying to predict even a few months in before, trying to help different organizations to be much more prepared for that.
And did that work? Did people listen to you when you had the statistics to essentially prove that the disease would break out?
At that time, we were building a prototype. We were able to predict Sudan riots. We were able to predict those type of diseases. And today, we work in a much more closer way on very specific problems, trying to get to a very high precision with those.
Interesting. So you've taken this knowledge and this skill set that you have, and you have created a new company called Sales Predict. Can you tell us about what this company does?
At one point, when I was looking at all the data and the predictions the system was making, I understood something very interesting, is that it's really good in understanding economics, but mostly macroeconomics. What happens in countries? When will prices of global products will drop or not? And then I was really interested about really trying to model and simulate it. The joke we had at that time is that somebody who wins a Nobel Prize in economics just needs to think about one hypothesis and then test it for 20 years. Why shouldn't we build a system that thinks about thousands a second? Maybe eventually it will find this Nobel Prize winning hypothesis. And this is what we started building. But in order to actually understand economics, you need to get to a higher granularity. And for that, what we're doing is taking information from companies, looking where they won in the past, where they lost in the past in business, and modeling that for them to understand much more how to drive more business for them, layering on top of that all the macroeconomic information we're gathering from the news events, the different behavior analytics that we get from traffic to certain websites, what people are searching for, and different events happening and trends.
I mean, so this tool that you've created is incredibly important for businesses, I imagine. It must be very widely accepted so far. Have you guys launched yet?
Oh yeah, we've been in business for 3.5 years.
Okay, so
we've been working with big companies like GE, Microsoft, Siemens, and a lot with medium-sized companies as well. It's a ready-made product from the shelf that people can use to optimize their lead qualification process from all those potential business that they can make and opportunities, focus on the really smart ones. In addition to that, we started adding other information like how to run automatic marketing on top of that. And in general, how can you build...
That's huge right now.
It is very successful. I was really surprised about how predictive marketing is getting so much attention right now, how it is the next frontier, at least for a business.
So there's so many questions I want to ask you because this is very, very interesting. I just am wondering, how did you come up with the idea for this? I mean, where did this start?
So I think the first prediction I always want to make is about when wars start and when they don't. With time, I was really interested more about medicine. And one of the first things I was doing, I think when I was 14, I went to a summer camp. And we were trying to predict probabilities for cancer. And then I understood that many of the ways we work in science are not automated enough. We have so much data that can help us to make predictions in a non-random way. Today, many things happen because a scientist thought about a hypothesis and then she tests it. I want to make this process the other way. I want the computer system to think about a hypothesis and only the one which have higher probability that we should test them. And the world is moving that way. I'll give you an example. Today, I've been working with the different hospitals in Israel and the HMOs, trying to predict for every person in Israel the probability of cancer and diabetes based on the different blood tests and other tests that we've been doing for them. It's very similar algorithms eventually, looking for correlations in those in a very efficient ways.
This is just incredibly interesting and mind-boggling, but I want to change subjects a little bit and talk about the fact that in 2014, you were actually elected to light a torch on Mount Herzl. How did you feel about that? And you know, what did it mean to you to have that experience?
For me, as I said, I came here to Israel when I was 4, and my family came with nothing. You couldn't take any possessions you had in USSR, and they had to start their life from the start. They came from a place where they couldn't show any opinion, couldn't even work in most places because of anti-Semitism. And eventually I find myself today lighting that torch and thinking that I represent something for the country that gave me so much. Everything I have till now, from the degree I got here, from every step over the way that I was funded by so many people, I was encouraged. And even the startup I'm doing right now, the spirit that the country gives to all the people here, I just felt proud that we put so much emphasis on science here that we really have a representative going on stage, lighting a torch, not only for me, but all the scientists and the people who want to do the extra step and take the risk, but also for all the people who came from USSR without nothing and eventually became a real big part of the culture here and rebuilt it.
100%. So our final question is, I heard that you actually have a black belt in karate.
That's true.
When did you have time to get this black belt?
Well, I have the same time as Marie Curie, like everybody else.
There you go.
I started when I was 5, pretty much because I didn't want to go to ballet lessons. And I like the fact about the spirit that it brings. One of the things you say at the end of a karate lesson is be loyal to your way. And that's deep. Think about what you want to do and just keep on doing that, perseverance. That's what's going to get you really far. And I like being alive, doing both sports. Eventually, it brings me the peace and motivation that I need in so many aspects in my life.
Yeah, well, to continue doing this groundbreaking work that you guys have been doing, it's unbelievable.
And eventually winning is also very fun.
I can only imagine that winning is fun. We have to see you in action. Next time you come in, we'll have you show us some moves on the set.
That would be perfect.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming in, Kira, and congratulations on everything that you've done so far.
Thanks so much.
And looking forward to see what you do next.
Thank you.
You might want to start practicing your French and Russian because it looks like a lot more French and Russian Jews will be immigrating to Israel this year. Aliyah rates are expected to keep on growing in 2016, continuing last year's record-breaking trend.
A new report by the Jewish Agency says that Aliyah should be exceptionally high in 2016, with large numbers of Jews from France, Russia, and Ukraine immigrating to Israel. Aliyah numbers hit a 15-year high in 2015, with the amount of new immigrants totaling to nearly 30,000. Projections for 2016 say that this year's new immigrants could number nearly 33,000, with over 10,000 coming from France. The report claims that the majority of French Jews coming to Israel are young families with children. The Diaspora Affairs Ministry says the French Aliyah is largely due to the rise of anti-Semitic attacks in France and Europe as a whole. Russian Jewish Congress member Yuri Kenner says it's a different story for Russian Jews, who generally experience low levels of anti-Semitism. Kenner says that if Russian Jews feel the need to immigrate to Israel, it's likely because of nationalistic messages in the local media.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day, it's time to grab your sunglasses because it's hot and sunny today in Tel Aviv, which brings us to today's word, shemesh. Shemesh means sun, and it comes from ancient Hebrew. Shemesh was actually stamped out of biblical Hebrew because of its ties to paganism. You see, the ancient Israelis like to say the sun was a goddess, which the writers of the Talmud didn't think was very funny. It was replaced with the word chama, which actually means hot in Hebrew. But don't worry, modern Israelis realized that it wasn't very practical to use chama to describe both heat and the sun, so the word shemesh won out. It's a good thing too, because now Israelis can accurately describe the usual Tel Aviv weather by saying zecham im shemesh, it's hot and sunny, without sounding repetitive. After all, the year-round warm weather in Israel is just one of the things that makes this country so special. On that note, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. The weekend is finally here. Friday is supposed to be nice and sunny with a high of 69 degrees. Unfortunately, the rain is expected to return on Saturday and the temperature will drop down to 59. All right, everybody, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.9 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at ILTV.tv, and don't forget to check out our evening update every night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.